The interface in a meeting room for Connect is very flexible. You can move pods around, you can resize them in the middle of the meeting, and that's nice, but really, when you're in a meeting, it's kind of a distraction. First off, if you're thinking about where your pod should be, you're not thinking about the content you're trying to deliver. And second off, and this is probably more important, if you take a moment to move the pods, you're creating dead time. And any amount of dead time that lacks focus for your audience is going to give them an opportunity to scurry off to their email client or their Twitter account or whatever distraction might be waiting for them in the wings. So you want to reduce that as much as possible. And layouts are a way that you can set your configurations of pods up ahead of time and actually provide some structure in the room so that your meeting can flow as you intend it to. That's what we're going to discuss here. What I have here is a standard setup that I might use for a little bit of content, a little bit of sharing, etc. If it's something that I'm going to use over and over again, then I'm going to want to create a layout so that I don't have to recreate this each time. Now, layouts can be accessed from the Layouts menu. If you click it, you'll see that there are 3 starter layouts here that were given to you by the default, and they're really here just to inspire you so that you can have a sense of the kinds of layouts that you can create. Also, notice that your meeting room's name has in parentheses the name of the current layout. These are all really useful tools, not just for configuring pods ahead of time, but to give your meeting a flow and structure. So let's take a look at how to create that. First, we'll go ahead and create a new layout by simply selecting Layouts, Create New Layout. I can duplicate an existing layout by selecting Duplicate Existing Layout and then choosing the layout. What will happen is that layout will be duplicated exactly, and then I can build from there. But instead of doing that here, I'm going to create a new blank layout, and we'll name it Introduction, and we'll click OK. Now, there's nothing here, so I'll start to populate it with pods. The first pod that I want for an introduction layout is going to be perhaps an attendee list. We'll resize that to fill the screen. And then next, I'll add a chat pod, allowing other people to introduce themselves. I'll go ahead and make that a little thinner. And then I'll add a note pod, because in a layout like this, I'll want to welcome people into the room and maybe give them a little bit of instruction about what they're to do now. There, that's kind of a basic introduction layout. Now, one of the best practices for working with pods is to rename them. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on this and rename it, because this is a pod that I might want to use in several different layouts in my meeting. And whenever I go into a layout or I create a new layout and I want to add a pod, instead of adding a new note pod, I'll add the welcome note pod to those for which it might be appropriate by selecting Pods, Notes. And now notice that there's a welcome option among the notes pods. But we're not quite done. We've set a single layout up. What I want to do now is work with all of the layouts to create the structure for my meeting that I mentioned. So I'm going to select Layouts, and now I'm going to choose Manage Layouts, because the order should be in order of the flow for the meeting. So the introduction is rarely going to be last in a meeting. So I'll go ahead and select Manage Layouts, and the first thing that I'll want to do is select Introduction, click the up arrow to move it to the top. Now, it doesn't actually move the layout anywhere, but it moves it in the order in the list, and that's important, because now, as I'm working through the meeting, I'll know that I can just hit each layout in succession. So I'm looking at the introduction layout. When it's time to start sharing, I'll select that layout, and you can see that Connect quickly reconfigures the room for that purpose. Then I'll go to the discussion layout, because I want to discuss the material. And then finally, I'll go to the collaboration layout, because I'll want people to work with the material. Now, you can name these layouts anything you want, and I'm actually going to take another couple of steps with layouts because they give the meeting even that much more structure. And trust me, when you're working with a meeting like this, the more structure you give yourself ahead of time, the better off you're going to be in the meeting, because you'll be able to focus on content. So I'm going to select Manage Layouts, and I'm going to rename the layouts with one additional piece of information. So I'll click on Rename, and I'm going to add a time frame. So for each layout that I want to rename, I can tell myself how long I'm supposed to spend in that layout, which also tells me how long I'm supposed to spend in that segment of the meeting. And that can be very handy. Now, there's one more thing that I tend to do that I want to show you here. I'm going to click Rename, and the discussion is designed to last about 20 minutes, but I'm also going to have another presenter moderate the discussion. So we'll put Olivia's name in here. And this is also a way to alert each individual presenter, if you have more than one in a room, to the fact that it's their turn to step up. So when you're doing your pre-meeting discussion about how the meeting is going to flow, all you need to tell somebody is be prepared when you see your name in the top of the meeting next to the meeting's name up here to talk. So we'll click done. We'll return to introduction. The meeting will flow, and when it's Olivia's turn, we'll select this, and Olivia can see that her name is up here. She knows now that it's time for her to step up and start her part of the meeting. So layouts are not only useful for you to set up your pods in a specific way ahead of time, they're useful for allowing you to create a structure for your meeting. And that structure will allow your meeting to be much, much better than if you just sort of toddle up and start presenting.